At Letchworth State Park, the Genesee River has been flowing southward in some places, northward in others, eastward, westward, every direction as it tumbles and falls through canyons that have only been formed since the last ice age. As it exposes the rocks, it talks of a much greater history, a time long before dinosaurs. All these layers that lie in the cliffs are much like pages in a book, a geological story, and tells of rotting mountains, mountains that were higher than the Himalayas. As they eroded and poured into inland seas, layer upon layer, as you look out into the canyon and you see different flat pages, those are the layers. Over 8 million years of history are preserved within the 1,000-foot drop that the river has exposed rock here in the park.
Although the valley dates back millions of years, the first settlers didn't arrive until after the last ice age. These woodland people would eventually organize into what we know as the Seneca and set up the first Indian villages in the valley around 1600. It is Lee Seneca who dubbed the valley Segahunda, or Vale of Three Falls.
If you think of it, the earliest layer, maybe Table Rock itself, would be the natural history, back millions of years when these rocks were formed and the glaciers came through and the Genesee started to take shape. And then you put on top of that the native history, which doesn't just last with the Senecas, it goes back thousands and thousands of years. But it's the Seneca people who called this valley Segahunda, the Vale of Three Falls, the last one being the lower falls and then the middle and the upper. It's those people that we probably know the best and tell the story more often here in Letchworth Park. And they believed one of the stories they told their children was that at places like this, where the falls were, that's where the Jungies were. The Jungies were little people, little forest people that lived under the falls, and they helped humans. They were good. They were part of the nature. And that relationship that the natives had between nature and their own human lives symbolized that connection with the Jungies was all part of the Letchworth story for many centuries. And of course, then you layer into that, the Mary Jemison story goes in there. She lived a few miles up north of us from where we are now. That's where she came to live in 1779 on the Gardeau Reservation, what would become the Gardeau Reservation.
Mary Jemison was an Indian captive during the French and Indian War. Her family came across the Atlantic Ocean from Ireland. She was of Scotch-Irish ancestry, and she was born in 1743 on the trip from Ireland over to the United States. At that point, her family settled in Pennsylvania near present-day Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. They lived there for about 15 years when in 1758 there was a raid during the French and Indian War and her family was captured. Most of her family were killed during that, but Mary was destined to spend the rest of her life with the Native Americans. She had numerous opportunities to leave the Native Americans, but she chose to live with them the remainder of her life, even when she was offered her freedom.
Mary had come accustomed to her new life with her new family. The natives knew her as Degawanis, which means two falling voices. Degawanis would remain in the valley until 1831, when she moved to the Buffalo Creek Reservation. She would die there in 1833. 41 years later, with the reservation in jeopardy of destruction, William Pryor Letchworth brought Mary Jemison's remains back to the valley, where she rests today.